This is episode 112 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 112 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today, I have another very special episode. I have Darcy Marler on the podcast. Darcy is a published author. He's a highly experienced multifamily investor, and he's presently taking his investing from over 100 units in the province of Alberta, Canada. He's looking at projects to build in Texas and in Florida right now because that's where he's seeing opportunity. And this was a totally coincidental discussion. Darcy didn't even know I was actually in Florida and looking in Florida when he reached out to me, and we just got to talking, and we talk a lot about numbers in this episode. You're going to see how Darcy and I approach our numbers, some of the different questions that I'll ask versus how he looked at it. And I'm hoping that you'll find that exercise valuable. I really enjoyed Darcy's mindset. He talks a lot about focusing on your strengths, focusing on what fits well with your personality, and really trying to scale your business that way. So there's a lot of wisdom to be gleaned here. It's not often that we have investors that have been on the show that have been in the business for 20 plus years. That's why I really thought this was a cool experience, and I think you're going to get something out of this. As always, if you're brand new to real estate investing and if we're using some language that you're not completely confident about, I highly recommend that you head right back to the very first 10 episodes because they were very foundational, and it should help you get a grasp and hit the ground running as you're learning more about this. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment and hit that like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell, just so that you can get notified every time there's a new episode. And if you are an audio listener, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people to find the show, and hopefully it'll help it to help more people. So without further ado, please enjoy episode 112 with Darcy Marler. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Darcy Marler on the podcast today. Darcy has a big portfolio. He's been around the business for a long time, and he's going to tell us all about it. So, Darcy, if you wouldn't mind, give us the backstory. Tell us what you're up to, as well as how you got there.
Great. No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I've been doing this full-time real estate investor for 20 years now, since 2001. Before that, I was a computer guy, which I think is a kind of a common theme in real estate investing. But so I ended that in 2001, had some money, didn't want to see a computer again. And so I came back to Canada. I was in South America, started getting into fix and flips. But from then I did land development, new construction, condo conversions, long-term rentals, all kinds of things. BRRRR, I've done everything. So,
okay. Yeah. What are you doing now more? Like, what's your main focus right now?
Right now, I'm working on some new construction stuff, but I'm also writing. I've finished my third book on real estate investing, and just about finished my fourth, actually. So I'm finding new joy in kind of putting pen to paper, as they say.
You're actually writing it physically, or is that just an expression?
No, that's kind of a pet peeve. Every time you hand somebody a book, oh, did you ghostwrite it? No, I actually physically written every.
Oh, yeah, I meant on paper, yeah. But no, that's awesome that you're not ghostwriting it. That's yeah. I mean, I would have a hard time writing a whole book myself with the amount of free time I have right now, but I think delegation is key, and then you can start getting more time for that kind of thing. What are your books called? First one was
comparing the strategies of real estate, of real estate investing. So I compare all the 8 major types of real estate investments and what's good and bad about them. I think that's one of the problems with a lot of the real estate education is that everything works all the time. The books and the stuff that you see on TV, do this and this, you'll be a millionaire in a year. And the flips work every time. So I kind of came at it honestly. This is what I've learned, the good and the bad, using my own case studies. Second one was a book on how to manage your cash better. So if you're just starting out, how to make your cash go farther and different ways to increase cash flow. The third book, which I just kind of finished at the end of last year, was land development. I think that's a very underserved portion of the real estate education market. And to go in line with that, the fourth one that I'm just finishing is actually on new construction. So actually looking at it from a Canadian standpoint as well, all of that.
Do you have your own construction company?
I've basically done, my problem is I lack focus, or I did lack focus anyway. So I'd flip from one thing to another. So that's why I've done basically all the different strategies. So I just have a company that I've used for my investments for the last 20 years.
But when you're building, are you subcontracting it to the various different trades, or do you just hire one general contractor and that's it?
I was being my own general, and I found didn't mesh with my personality or my abilities. Like I was more of a higher level guy. I should have been delegating. So I'm definitely doing that the last few, but the first 10, 15 years, that was one of the biggest mistakes I made, was trying to be my own general and trying to do everything myself.
Trying to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
So I do have my company that does that, but I do delegate within my company. I think that's the big thing. But yeah, no matter what, if you want to focus on bigger things, you've got to get rid of the day-to-day monotonous stuff. The things that are the things that are repetitive need to go. Okay, so that's interesting. Whereabouts is your base? Are you Western Canada?
I'm out of Calgary, actually. Yeah.
You're in Calgary. Okay. My brother lives in Calgary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have. Actually, I've got rentals all over Alberta, though. So I'm in about 6 places around Alberta.
So how's the last few years been for you? Obviously, Calgary went through a downturn, and now it's kind of steady growth, it seems, despite even the Keystone Pipeline getting canned.
Actually, yeah, it hasn't been great, to be honest with you. Yeah, the vacancies went up, rents went down. So the rental side of the market was gone for a while. It's starting to pick back up. Multifamily hasn't been treated well. And then so that's the rental side. And then on the new project side of my business, doing flips or doing, new construction, whatever, we missed the people coming in the early 2000s. There was like 100,000 people a month coming into Alberta. A third would go to Edmonton, a third would go to Calgary, and a third to the rest of the province. And that kind of stopped in 2015. We're just basically the last year, I think, net positive again for in-migration, but nowhere near where we were. And that's kind of what drives a lot of the real estate investing market is people coming in to keep the vacancies down, the rents up, for people to buy your product if you're selling it. So we're starting to turn the corner, I think.
So what's your portfolio look like in Alberta? I'm assuming it's all in Alberta.
It's all in Alberta, yeah. So over the last 20 years, I've owned 92 properties, 240 doors, and that's all the rentals and new construction and all that. Right now, I probably have I think I got about 15 buildings, 107 doors as rentals. I tend to, my average building, I guess you'd say, is probably a multifamily 9 to 12 units, 1980s kind of vintage, renovated and fixed up.
Okay. And when you go into something now, are you still trying to do the BRRRR, or are you more looking to just go in and just sink money into something? Like if you see a good deal, like walk me through what you'd be looking for now to be a good deal.
Yeah. Basically what you're saying, that was my problem for years, is that I did have a short attention span. So I'd get, I'd finish one job and then, shiny trinket would come around and I'd get into something entirely different. So now I am trying to focus, learning off the last 5 years. We've kind of basically had a 5-year-long recession here in Alberta. So now I want to be in and out quick of something. I'm also at an age, I'm 54, where I don't really want to get into 8 or 10 year long JVs for rentals or things like that. So kind of learning from my experience. This is my 5th recession now. I remember the 8th. But yeah, so in and out quick. I'm also figuring out my why and my personality more than I ever have before. Before I was just kind of in it to make money. But now I'm focused on only things that kind of play to my strengths and my personalities. What am I good at? What am I not good at? So that's, I don't want to be a landlord anymore. I don't want to be a general contractor guy anymore, or on-site supervisor guy anymore. So if you kind of do that, you can weed out some of the strategies that maybe don't make sense for you anymore. And then that changes over time as you age and get experience. So now I'm focused on new construction and more the mentorship and writing side of the real estate world. So,
okay, so those your active incomes now are in building. Well, I guess you're developing.
Yeah.
So we'll walk through some examples of properties you're sure. buying and what you're expecting. So you're doing that, and then you are contracting the build and then selling finished units, or are you selling an apartment, or are you keeping that at the end of the day and refinancing it for a rental property?
I've been doing some basically build new and sell, and now I'm just starting to investigate down in the US, actually, building multifamily, like a 25 or 30 door raising the financing for that. And then I think we'll refinance and keep what is the plan once we get up and running. So
where would you be investing in the US?
I've got some actually some friends that were up here that got their butt kicked too. So they went down and they're basically out of Houston. And then I've got another group that's in Florida actually. So I like those. Again, you're looking for where are people moving into, right? And in the States, they tend to be moving out of California now. And there's always kind of people moving to Houston. I spent a bunch of time in the 90s in South America working down there. My wife's Venezuelan, so I understand the Latino market quite well. And Miami, they just go to Miami. Like that's kind of what they do. Yeah. So you've always got this in-migration kind of built in. You know, there's 100,000 people a year that are born in Houston. So there's just a city every year kind of that gets growing into Houston automatically. So.
Yeah, those are pretty great states, and they're two that are high on my radar. I'm actually in Florida right now. I'm in Naples right now. And I am looking at the investment prospects down here. I mean, compared to what you see in Alberta in terms of purchase price, I think, you know, there's a lot of comparable. But just, you know, coming from Burlington, Ontario, when I come down here and I see that I can get a semi, I can buy 2 units for $275,000. And I can rent each side out for $1,600. Like I don't hear those kind of numbers back home. That doesn't exist. So it did, but
Well, the other part too is you can't forget too is that you know, in Houston, for example, it takes a month to get a permit, where it's, you know, 6 to 8 months in Calgary to physically build a single family home. You know, they got no basements, the insulation, the R factor is different, all that. So, you know, you'll take 4 to 5 months to physically build the building, where in Calgary, you're 8 to 12 months with everything, right? So just the layers of bureaucracy and kind of the difficulty in just being in Canada these days makes it a lot more attractive not to be there.
Is it that long in Calgary? It's really, it's 8 months to get a permit. Is that just now, or is that, a long time that it's been that way?
No, I've actually, let me tell you, Sonny. No, I pulled my first permit in 2001, and you could expect to hear back within 3 to 4 weeks. And now you're 4 to 6 months at best, kind of thing, and maybe a little bit more. So, and the amount of regulations, you know, back then you needed the checklist that they put you through of what we need to see was 1.5 pages. Now it's 11 pages. They used to ask for 3 blueprints. Now they ask for 15. Like, so the amount of bureaucracy is just stupid.
I thought we had it bad in Ontario. You know what they do in Ontario, because they're required to give you a response within 2 weeks. So if they're busy, they'll just nitpick at something small. They'll find, you know, everybody makes some sort of minor mistake on their permit app. So if they're busy, they'll just nitpick on something small, and then the clock stops. As soon as they can put you into that queue, oh, you made a mistake. So we did get back to you and there was something deficient, and now you have no clock. So now it could be 6 months. And I would just literally, I would call them up, you know, once every couple of days. Hey, John, how's it going? You know, I just wanted to see if you got to that. And the answer is pretty consistent. And I even hear other people getting the same response. And they just say, you know, I'd be a lot more likely to get your permit reviewed if I wasn't here talking on the phone. And they won't give you any feedback. They won't tell you when you can expect it. So I've waited several months, but I've never waited 7. I've never waited 6, but I could see it trending that way. And so just through a little trick, oh, you made this little, you know, you didn't cross that T just right.
Well, the other thing too is that they won't even accept it if it's not perfect, right?
Yeah, well, they won't even do that. But I'm saying if it gets past that, and then they find some little detail, like if the engineer didn't include a certain notation, they might say it. It just depends. Like if you get somebody who's in a bad mood, they'll say, "Well, they needed to include that, so now now you're off the clock." And and
what I'm noticing too is they'll move the goalposts on you, right? So
yes, exactly.
Theoretically, this 11-page checklist should include everything you need. They go along. Oh, we also need you to do a soil report, for example, and so everything gets put on hold, and now you're going to go off and do a soil report. So that's pretty typical now too. It's nothing, or you'll get the development permit approved, but with conditions, and the conditions are more reports.
So when you're doing it out there, if you want to build a single family home, are you having to go through a site plan approval process in addition to a permit application, or is it just a permit application that takes that long?
Basically, that's just the permit application.
Wow. Okay. I don't envy you working in that market.
No,
But that does seem to be an opportunity. It's, if other people don't want to deal with it, there's always money to be made. That's kind of what I've learned as I go through, is the more people who don't want to deal with something, it's kind of like more of an opportunity.
Yeah. Especially if you're, and that's actually in the second book, the cash management book is one of the things there. If you don't have any money to start, to do that kind of behind the scenes permitting work to get it ready for somebody is kind of a cash cheap way of getting into the business and building some value to get some money out at the end without a lot of money in.
You're saying going through the permit processes?
Yeah. So if you were to, you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of money. If you could find a property that might be good for a land development or new construction and tie it up and actually go through the permitting process, it's not that expensive to do that, relatively speaking. And then
you're saying if you can tie it up conditionally, or you're saying relatively speaking, if it's worth $15 million when it's done, it's you can get in with just a little bit.
I'm not sure you're going to start there with that one, but let's say you found a lot that's got an old house on it, and you don't have the money to take it all the way through and tear down the house and build something new, but can you get the permits in place? Everything ready to go, and then you can hand it off to a builder that could do that for the market.
So if you wanted to out in Alberta, and I think a lot of Ontarians are talking about Alberta right now because it is low and it represents an opportunity.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, say, find a property, like what would a target be? Would it be a single family that maybe you could build into a triplex? Would it be a single family on a big lot that you could maybe put a private road down the middle and, make 6 townhouses or 8 townhouses? Yeah. Like what type of project are you seeing being possible and most realistic?
What I'm seeing is, and kind of funny you brought that up, all the money's kind of going to new properties, right? Mm-hmm. So there's been a real flight to quality, if you want to call it, or flight to new. Like I said, I remember the 80s, the recession in the 80s, everything just stopped because interest rates were 16, 17, 18%. Here at interest rates, 2.5%, building has still been going on like crazy the last 5 years, even though we haven't had the in-migration. So there's all this new product. And what you're seeing is kind of a cannibalization of the older, like even a 1980s, like my 1980s property, if you're a renter, and you've got a brand new fourplex 2 doors down, you're going to migrate to that because the differences in rent aren't all that much. So there's a lot of older product. If you were looking to kind of demolish something and build new, there's a lot of stuff, 40s, 50s, 60s that can be added pretty cheaply that you can tear down and build something else on. But the strategy, and what I'm hearing, the money coming from Ontario and BC is all going to kind of the newer product. So as opposed to buying my 1980s fixed up kind of version. So.
Yeah, I especially see it at some of the real estate investor groups is they push the suited properties. So they'll just, brand new single family with a basement dwelling unit as well. That's pretty common. And investors will buy up, 3 of them at a time so that they're buying 6 units and they're getting cash flow. So you're seeing something similar. That's kind of what you see people focusing on.
Yeah, if I were to invest, that's kind of where I'd be in the rental market, would be those suited units, because Edmonton was a way further ahead than Calgary on that. They were, let's call it 10 years ago, they started to incentivize people to put basement suites in. Calgary just dug their heels in until basically a couple of years ago, and now even then it's kind of still like pulling teeth, but it's better. But I think they finally realized that, you've got to, you can't just keep pushing out with creep all the time. You've got to start invigorating the downtown a little bit. So.
Yeah. Okay. So they're coming on board with that too. So is that something you see as like, if you were to go look for a development project, what would you be looking for? Like, what do you see, like with your skill set, as being the right type of property for you to go after?
Well, I'd be going after basically a spot where I can build a 25 or 30 unit apartment building. The difference is, just as we discussed kind of earlier, the scope of, what's it cost to buy that piece of dirt here versus Florida or Houston, and what's you're dealing with like $100 a square foot building cost versus 200 or 225 a foot kind of building cost. So the economies are just different, right? So now that I've got the kind of experience I do, why would I stay in Canada? Sorry.
Okay. So you're not even looking in Alberta anymore. Okay.
No.
So walk me through what you are, or you don't have to give me any addresses or anything, but give me a property and concept, something you've crunched some numbers on and you're leaning towards. Let's walk through what would you be acquiring it for? Let's get some basic kind of back of the envelope numbers. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay. So yeah, describe what it is. Like, is there a parcel of land you found, like an acre, or what are you typically looking for?
So basically, like let's take Houston for example. You can get service lots in the 30 to 50,000 range.
Okay.
You're $100 an acre to build, and then you're selling them for 300 at the back end, $300,000 on the back end. So there's good spread there. That's kind of what you're looking for as new construction, because that's not always the case. While it makes sense, buy low, sell high, fine. But it's not always. You can't always find the cheap lots, or the cost per square foot to build is different all over the place. And maybe if that's low, maybe the resale is just barely over replacement too, right? So you can't just always assume that you're going to find kind of the spreads you need.
Yeah.
But Houston and a lot of places in Florida are like that. I was in Florida last year, and I was looking at St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay, down into kind of not quite to Sarasota, but kind of down. I like the west coast of Florida as opposed to the.
Me too. Yeah. I just saw a lot. I was from a wholesaler, waterfront on a river, just inland from Tampa, and I think $200,000, and the houses in the street there were anywhere from 400 to 800,000. And I mean, waterfront. When I see waterfront, I'm just like, well, you can't make more waterfront. So. No. So waterfront's a feeling. I just don't want to spread myself. I don't want to get into that. Like, I could definitely get into building down here, but I wouldn't start with that. Like I've done that at home, but it's not going to be something I turn on overnight. But okay, have you done a deal in Houston yet?
I've got a partner that's built several, so we're kind of teaming up together, and and then we're bringing a third guy to bring some money in. So I basically incorporated there and up here, and got the ITN numbers you need down there.
So you're already all set up, ready to pull the trigger.
We're just set up, ready to start to do something. Yeah.
So you would be buying, hypothetically, like a 1 acre lot that you build 20 to 30 units on.
Yeah.
Or is that approximately what size you would need?
Yeah, and then I'm trying to. The goal is to maybe build 3 or 4 of those, maybe 5 of those. So you've got 150 doors, and then keep those for 2 or 3 years, and then the exit strategy might be to sell to a REIT or an insurance or some large institutional investor kind of thing.
So let's walk through a hypothetical. So what would you buy that acre of land for?
That depends. That's hard to say. You're sub 200,000 in most places. Like you're 100 to 200 grand to buy something that would
work for that. Zoning would be appropriate for that.
Zoning would be appropriate.
Well, that is just awesome.
Yeah,
that's craziness. Okay, so 200 grand to buy something and you figure it would be about 30 units, or you would go for 50 units if you could.
I'd probably stay around the 30 door mark.
Okay, so if we assume, what's the average unit size?
Probably 700 square feet, 800 square feet. 7 for one, 800 for 2.
Okay, so we'll say 750 on average, and then we would gross up by 10% for common area and hall space and all that. So we'll say 825 square feet as far as calculating build.
Yeah, you typically lose about 800 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry. Yeah.
All right. So then we're say 30 units. So we're looking at building 24,000 square feet, 24,750 square feet ish. And let's say, what do you think your build costs are going to be?
They're right in the 100 to 110 per square foot.
All right. Well, we'll just assume that we're at the 110. So 24,750 times 110. So you're looking at something, 7.2 million to build. Now you're going to have some other costs there too. So development charges, I would assume.
Yeah. There's always carrying costs.
So development, carrying costs. What do you think you're going to add on for all that if you're building 30? If you just back of the envelope ballpark it.
Let me just pull up kind of an actual number here, and I'll stop riffing off the top of my head here.
I like riffing sometimes, but accurate numbers are good too.
Okay, there was one I was looking at. It was actually a 10-plex. So this would have been in Cape Coral, Florida.
See, I like Cape Coral. I had my eye on something there.
Yeah. So land cost was 140. Cost to build was 1.3 million for the 10-plex.
Okay, so let's just slow down for a second. So we'd be 10 units, and we'll figure unit size of 825, including the common space. So we're grossing up to cover common area. So you're 8,250 square feet. You're still figuring 110 build, or is it more down there?
No, you're right in there. So basically 130,000 a unit all in for construction.
Okay, and you figured 140,000 to buy, right? Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay, so build would be
1.5 million with contingency and all that. Total everything all in was about $1.5 million.
Oh, okay, $1.5 million. So that included the build, so the 110 plus all your other stuff. So there's about, I guess, including the purchase. So you're 1.5, including the purchase, development, and construction.
Yep.
And your interest?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. So we'll.
Those was your hard cost.
Okay, so you're in for 1.5 million. What are you figuring for interest?
So you're call it 70% finance, 30% cash down. Your interest 7%. I'm a little higher because I'm not an American. So you're 70 grand for interest.
These numbers don't sound bad. And then would you be selling those?
So basically, I'd look to hold. So basically, refinance and get new financing, 5-year hold.
Okay, so what do you figure the new value is when you're done? If you're in for like 1.57 with your interest,
right? Market value basically is about 1.85 at that point, based on a 5.5% cap rate.
So let's go through basics on your rent. What do you figure in your rent would be there? You're a mix of ones and twos, right?
Yeah, so averaging about 1,300 per unit.
Okay, so you're 13,000 a month, 156,000 annually.
Yeah.
What do you figure in for taxes on something like that? Did you run through those numbers at all?
Property taxes would be about 16,000.
Okay.
Even 10% on management, which is high, but 15.6 there.
And then maintenance, what do you like to figure on something new like that? 8%, 5%?
I had about vacancy and maintenance together was about 10 grand.
I'll make mine similar. So I'll do 2% vacancy, and then I've got 5% maintenance. It's a little higher, but close.
I didn't have that split up, but anyway. So
what would you do for insurance? What do you figure something like that would be?
About 12.6.
Now, other costs, things like landscaping, garbage removal.
I'd throw that into maintenance. I kind of just call.
Okay, so you just have that all in. So you think your maintenance at the roughly 5% you've budgeted just under is more than enough to cover all that stuff?
So yeah, so 10,000 out of 156. So you're like 6% all in. 6.
Yeah, including your vacancy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll just throw you $500 there for miscellaneous. I'm getting like around a 5 cap there.
5.
Okay. Yeah, so our numbers are calculated a touch different, but okay. So what kind of financing would you be? 65% loan to value or 75% there?
We were 70, actually.
Okay. 70.
That's one of the things I've learned to is, while it's exciting to go to 80 or 85%, you'll sleep better if you're at the Sunday market.
Especially in this kind of market, because you just don't know. Like you don't know what's going to happen. Like I find the American market is a little more volatile. Like it actually, where you come from, you probably know the feeling. Like it's volatile. Like Alberta, it can be up, it can be down.
Yeah.
Okay, so interest rate on that, you're going to be like 6% or something like that.
I had 7 just because I'm out of country. So I think that goes down the more you build, the better rates you're going to get. But
yeah,
just like the street, they said about 70% with 7% interest. So.
Yeah, so I'm showing. I mean, I'm probably got something wrong here, but at that level, I'm showing negative cash flow. What did I do wrong here? So I've got taxes at 16, insurance at 12.6.
Yeah.
I've got maintenance at 4%, so 6,200. I've got vacancy at $3,000. Utilities. That's what we forgot. What do we got for utilities? Would you have anything, or
no.
It's all separated?
It's all separated, yeah.
Okay, there's your cash flow. So yeah, then I got
I had 67,000 for mortgage, so I'm showing 35 grand positive cash flow per year on that.
Okay, so you would be 30-year amortization on this mortgage, or not? Would you not?
Yep.
Okay, so 70% on 1.85 million, so that's a $1.295 million mortgage, 30-year am, 7% interest.
I still had it at the 70% of the original construction.
Oh, so you're not financing. You're going to just come in with cash to do the renos.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's do our correct then. So we're going to be,
This would be new construction. So I'm actually building it for 1.5.
so you're going to do 70% of what you're in for. You're in for 1.57, right? Okay. So you're basically financing 1.1 million.
I had about 980 because I'm at 1.5 all in for cost to build.
All right. You know, we're going to work in hard numbers instead of percentages here. So you're financing, your scenario here is not pushing it right to the 70% even of the current market value. I mean, I know you gave me an ARV, you're not pushing towards that. So if you do that, if you finance, you're figuring about 980 in total versus the 1.57 you're in for ish. You're going to have a fairly large down payment. You're in for, you know, call it 600 grand. But your cash on cash, like, well, we can calculate some of those numbers. It doesn't look fantastic, but you do certainly have the pay down aspect. You have the appreciation aspect. So and then of course you have the sleeping at night aspect as well.
Yeah. And as you're an old man, that's the important thing.
Hey, I get it. Like, everybody starts aggressive. I have people ask me, they're like, oh, how aggressive should I be? How much should I leverage? I'm like, well, when I got started, I leveraged as much as I could possibly take. And then I scaled it back sort of as I went forward. Yeah. It's all situational, right? So on these numbers, I have it. So your principal pay down on a yearly basis, you're averaging about 11,900 a year. Based on that mortgage at 7%. I think you'll do a bit better than that on the rate. So over the 5-year term, I've got about 60 grand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, over the 5-year term, about 60 grand. And then 3% on the appreciation. I just figure that. I mean, you could be way better than that, especially with the inflation that I think is coming. So you could be, but who knows what could happen. So, I mean, if it's 3%, that's like 47 grand a year.
I did 1.5%.
Coming from Calgary numbers. All right. So at 1.5, you're 23%, or you're 23,000 a year. That's still like fantastic numbers. Yeah. And then of course you have that forced appreciation that you've put in there as well. So your cash flow, about 24,000 a year, 2,000 a month. Not bad. There's definitely a good buffer in there. And like you said,
I got cash flow is about 35-ish
a year. Yeah. Sometimes I'm a little more conservative on my numbers. Well, I did put 10% in for management. So you obviously don't need to spend that. You can go 5. I've got maintenance at 4%, 3% or 2% on vacancy. Then 12.6 on insurance, taxes. I got 16,000. And then I just did like a $500 miscellaneous. So it's nice that you're going to separate all those utilities though. You've really got, that's one of the nicest things, because I don't really feel that tenants value that. I like, if whether utilities included or utilities not, people just look at the sticker rate. I find with rental rates, sure, they like if utilities are included, but I don't think it's a deal breaker if it's not.
Well, the other thing too is because it's a new build, you've got the ability to make sure that every unit has a separate meter for everything, right? As opposed to buying a 1980s product that's, you know, where everybody's sharing the same gas and all that stuff.
For water separation, in Ontario, it's ridiculous. Like, I would pay like $15,000 if I wanted to add a municipal meter to my duplex. Like, they would just charge me a ridiculous number. What would it be down there? Have you looked into that? Do they have a large charge for that?
I haven't looked into that. No,
the guy was just assuming you'd be able to do it. Okay.
The partner, the guy that was the guy that I knew that lived up here, got laid off in the oil patch, and now he's down there in construction. I was working through these numbers with him, and he didn't bring that up. So, and he's
okay. So you don't think it's going to be an issue?
He didn't think it was going to be an issue. So.
Okay, that's pretty crazy that you can get those lots for that. Now, what makes you know this is going to be? What makes you know that this is worth doing? Like, is that something that you're leaning towards actually pulling the trigger on?
Right. Yeah. The difference is, like I said, I've got guys that I know here that have done it, right? So there's a guy in Houston, and he's just been building single family and duplexes, but he's been doing very well at that. And then this other gentleman down in that I knew up here that's in Florida now, he's been doing stuff down there and doing quite well. And so his wife actually became a commercial realtor down there. So she's also working the numbers with me in that. So
whereabouts is he located?
He's off in Boca Raton, so he's on the more Atlantic side. Okay. I just find that it's just too busy over there. Like, Like you're just in the car all the time. Where I find St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay areas, it's a lot more laid back, and it's a lot more, I don't know, just less stress, I think.
Oh
So
yeah, I love the lifestyle over here. It's, I mean, although Naples is really expensive and kind of silly like that, but I mean, just I like going for the sunsets. The water's generally quite still if it's not a windy day. It's really beautiful over here. I'm not interested in leaving anytime soon.
And what I liked about that area, the St. Petersburg and the Cape Coral and that kind of thing, there's just so many, I don't know, you call them little jetties and stuff, where there's just so many little rivers and everything kind of going through. Mm-hmm. There's just so much waterfront. Like everything is kind of, it's not just one coast. It's like a bazillion little jut-ins and stuff.
The inland waterways are great. There's, you'll find a lot of houses that just have a little dock in the backyard. You can lower your boat into the water. It's pretty different kind of lifestyle, pretty different kind of feel. And then you can see dolphins in the water. So that's kind of cool too.
Make sure you put a gazebo over top of your swimming pool so the alligators don't get in or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you also want to do a little tiki hut in your backyard, get out of the sun a little bit. It's funny. Like since I've been down here, I've actually heard so many other people thinking about Florida, thinking about Texas right now. And I think it makes a lot of sense because those are two states that are kind of standing for individual freedoms. So a lot of the conservative people, which are a lot of investors, they're thinking, let's go to these places. So I was speaking with a realtor a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me, and I'm not sure where he got the information from, but I do believe it is that they've got about 2,000 in-migration a day in Florida right now.
I believe it's.
I wouldn't be surprised at all to hear that.
No.
So my thought is these people need a place to live. Of course, there could be a correction, there could be a collapse. I mean, we saw 2007. They're just recouping those values now. But those people need a place to live. Like I look at it in Ontario, similar way. I'm like, values could go down. I'm absolutely not saying they couldn't, but there's so many people who need housing that they pretty much need to actually just choose to leave Ontario and go to like Alberta if values are going to go down in Ontario. Right. Because or planning needs to open right up and allow them to build. But I mean, it's hard to ever say what's going to happen, where things are going to go. It's really just speculation.
Yeah. But you're sitting there, obviously Alberta, chances are pretty good and conservative. But you look at like Vancouver, for example, and the migration into the country slowed down a little bit because of COVID. But obviously, the goals by the government are still to have 1 million people a year come in. Right now, they're not really going to Alberta. So typically they go to Vancouver and Toronto. Mm-hmm. You've got, if you think 6 to 8 months is hard to get a permit in Alberta, try Vancouver. So land prices are stupid high. The government's not working with you to build new stuff quickly. So that's why, vacancy rates are so low. So as the point being is it's hard, or I don't necessarily see the values dropping in like a Vancouver because you've got that artificial government lift kind of thing, across the immigration and bad policy, to be honest with you. Kind of the same thing in Ontario a little bit.
Well, it's lethargic, right? It's still lethargic planning. It takes a long time, and we just can't keep up with the people pouring into this country. And to me, I mean, not to get political, it's just irresponsible. We need to take care of the people who are here. We need to make sure that they're good before we start pouring more people in. But I think that there's a lot behind that. They want to keep money coming into the country, keep propping up the tax base. There's so many reasons, but it kind of reminds me of like when you give somebody, a blood pressure medication and it causes another problem, and then you give them a medication for that. That's Ontario in a nutshell. Like so many policies, then they have to layer on other policies to fix what that policy hurt. Welcome to Canada.
And then, Vancouver will say, natural gas for apartments is no good. We got to outlaw that. Well, how are you going to heat people kind of thing? Right? So, I mean,
we're getting a little extreme right now. So, I've been talking about this a fair bit. I think that going cross border is actually a way of diversifying against the political climate. And if you're worried about what your politicians might do, it's good to get out of their jurisdiction and be into another one, just so that you're not, you don't have all your eggs in a basket, which you are not in control of. Because if they mandate something, like look what Doug Ford did in Ontario, he just said you can't kick people out. Like how many landlords did that break? I'm sure there's many that it just absolutely broke them. Tenants just said, we're not going to pay. Well, the landlord's still making payments. So You know, it's a tricky thing. A delicate balance is needed, and obviously not an easy conversation to have.
Yeah.
So Darcy,
don't get me started.
Don't get me started. I want to get you started. I love these conversations, and I don't shy away from.
Well, we can go there. Yeah.
I don't shy away from being controversial. But what do you want to talk about? Because I know you've done so much. What do you think is the most value that we could talk about right now? Value to. I have a listener base of intermediate investors. Got some advanced ones. I got a lot of newbies. You know, talk to the middle. Where can you add value? A lot of people are looking for ideas. They're looking for cash flow. They want to create wealth so they can have freedom. What would you tell them?
The first, I'm kind of on a bit of a kick to kind of pick your why before you pick your how. I think too much of the real estate education world is rentals and flips and BRRRR. So if you're just brand new getting in, you know, that's all the books on the shelf. That's all the TV shows, right? Other than, you know, how to pick a house in the Caribbean. But if you're going to invest, there's really nothing else out there, right? So automatically people go for rentals and flips. Well, what if you don't like that? What if that's not your cup of tea, right? So I would suggest strongly that take some time, don't just jump right in, educate yourself as to all the abilities, like all the different condo conversions or new construction or land development, whatever, and see what kind of speaks to your personality and your why. Like, why are you doing this? What are you hoping to get out of it? So that you can enjoy it, right? Because I got to be honest, I haven't enjoyed most of the last 10 years, and not just because of the really bad economy, but because I was doing, you know, because I was a landlord when I didn't like doing it, or because I was a general contractor when I didn't like doing that, right? So but that's kind of the story I was telling myself, is that's the only way you make money, is to get rid of that kind of the middleman. So you just kind of show up every day on site and not really happy about it. Well, you know, I think you can make money in real estate and kind of be happy and pick your battles and this is what I want to do, and then I'm going to offload the rest of it. So I would, you know, and you don't necessarily just have to do rentals and flips. There's other things you can do out there too. So.
Okay, so give me an example of the other things you can do that are not, you know, most people are just either working their full-time job, probably don't have a huge savings. So what is it that they're going to be able to do that's not rentals and flips and BRRRRs? Right.
So again, if you're just starting out, no money, well, you know, that's kind of part of the thing too, is you need a little bit of money. Sorry. But it's also, there's ways to raise money, you know, wholesaling bird dogs. So maybe you have to get in there to begin with, but if you've got a little bit of money, now you can do a new construction project of just one single family home, or you know, a land development where you're taking a property, removing the old house and getting the utilities in and getting it ready for a builder. So, you know, you don't, you know, I think part of the mystique or the thing about land development and new construction is it is massive companies doing it, and it's 160 acres at minimum, and you got to have millions of dollars. Like, you can build a house for, you know, single family home for, you know, not tons of money, you know, so yeah, if you're in there getting a JV partner anyway, like, you know, you can do something like that. And because you're offloading the actual technical part to a realtor, to the architect, to the mortgage broker, and to your general contractor, you're not physically swinging the hammer anyway. So you can put a good team together and kind of do some of this other stuff. As we were talking before, you know, you can do some land parceling. Let's say you find 3 older homes together that can get knocked down. If you don't have the money, you could work a deal with the 3 guys or the 3 different owners, and then go through City Hall and get all the paperwork done. If you want to actually design the new property, so you have a package to give to a builder, it's, you know, so now you've saved him a year of farting around with the city, and there's value there.
So you're saying the three houses for 3 teardowns in a row, or those 3 to take down and build a new apartment.
Exactly.
In order for that to work, and I actually know a guy that did this in Ontario, and he created a $4 million equity, built-in equity for himself doing this project. And he basically contacted 2 owners, tied up both properties for a year, and then went through the planning process. Eventually he had to buy it because the planning went on another 6 months, but he knew he was far enough along that he knew he was going to get the approval. And so he bought them, closed on them, wrote it out for another 6 months, and now he's building them. And yes, that's possible. But I mean, if you're in Toronto, or even Burlington, where I'm from, you're paying bungalows. Crappy bungalows are $1 million, 1,000 square foot bungalow.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you find 3 of those side by side,
Well,
you're $3 million. So you can tie them up for a year, but these aren't desperate sellers. This is a seller's market.
Right.
So do you think that still works in that kind of market?
Depends where you are. Everything depends on where you are, right? Like, so, you know, you can't get, you know, lot for a 10-unit apartment building for 140 grand everywhere either, right? But so you've kind of got to, like we were talking about in that Cape Coral thing, right? But, you know, I've done land parceling several times and made it work several times. And other times, you know, I've tried and the numbers didn't work, or, you know, the seller just wanted too much money. So you just got to walk away. But yeah, you know, it's trial and error, right? Like, but somebody
could, with just getting started, they could go learn the building permitting process. How are they going to do that? What's the easiest way for them to learn what they don't know? Because I've been through that process. You and I both know there's a lot of things you got to know, and you kind of learn them as you go. What would you say to them?
I would say it would be really nice if someone were to write a book on land development and then follow that up 2 months later with a book on new construction. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So do your reading, do your research. Obviously there's gaps, but I mean, heck, you could even go, you know, offer to work for somebody in the business for free, or, you know.
But seriously, these 2 books that I wrote answer those questions. Like, this is what zoning is about. This is what usage is. This is what density is.
So they kind of help you to understand. I think in Ontario, the big thing is infill. If you can find lots that have extra space and sever off lots, those are where people make millions of dollars in Ontario. I see that. My mother-in-law did one. She bought a lakefront cottage and severed off 3 lots. Yeah. So she paid like $3 million, I think, or $2.6 million for the lakefront cottage in Burlington. And then each lot she severed off, I believe each one is like $1 million to $1.2 million. Right. Just to sell. But, you know, she had to service them, and there's lots of expenses and interest and all that. I mean, you deal in these big numbers and they sound so impressive, but of course you've got interest that goes with it. So, but that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. But even, you know, and so the further you get away from downtown Toronto in your case, or, you know, downtown Calgary in my case, you know, the land gets cheaper and things get cheaper and easier to do. So, but, you know, the land development book, for example, I give all through the book, I use 3 case studies from my own experience. One was 2 homes side by side, 1960s, and I moved them off, subdivided that into 4. And now you got four lots. I ended up building on those wells. So I built 4 properties. And then I did another one where I did 7 acres and then subdivided 36 units. And then I was involved in the building of a new racetrack here in Calgary as the president of the company that did that. That's 700 acres. So, you know, I've done small, medium, and large jobs. And I use those examples, you know, I use a lot of case studies in my book to kind of let people to give it a hands-on taste. And so,
well, it sounds interesting.
Wherever you fit in that mix, you know, there's something that you make. I can do that. So.
Yeah. So how would you say, and I'm interested in reading your book because I'm sure there's plenty of ideas in there. How would you say that, like, say you want to do an apartment building, how do you know that you're going to get approved? Because my experience is, and I get this feedback in London, they say, we don't spot rezone. So we're not going to let you put high density right next to single family homes. But if I was near, you know, 3 other apartment buildings and I could find some land right next to those, I personally feel like I'm a lot more likely to get approved because the city is already allowing for high density in that area. Is that sort of the approach you take? You look for other buildings that are of that density?
Yeah. So, you know, as I talk about zoning or whatever, I say you can rezone, but only within reason. Like you can't build a, you know, nuclear power plant downtown. So try to match, you know, try not to do square peg round hole. Try to match the use that you want with the property that already lets you do it, or that it's going to be minimal change. Or the other thing is, a lot of times if you go talk to City Hall and go talk to some of the bureaucrats or the politicians, like, what do you need? What do you want? Like,
what do you want?
Like, so that way they're helping you. You know, like there's this property that's been kind of vacant for 20 years. We really want to see something there. If you were to do this, you know, we'd really help you there. If you can find something like that, that's a bonus too.
That's as Matt McKeever calls it, pushing your business downhill. I say instead of pushing your business uphill. Yeah. So
we all have, you know, and I was guilty of that too. And you know, we all have these fantastic dreams. You know, it'd be really cool to build that there. And then but that's not really what that land's set up for. So it's a real uphill battle. And why? Like, just go with the flow.
You know, my challenge with the way things are is I don't like being ignored, and my solution to being ignored by people who I need their attention is to go in and see them in person.
Yeah.
And when, you know, city halls are closed, I mean, that to me is like devastating, because like I can't be nearly as persuasive over the phone as I can when I show up. And the people don't like it when I show up. So, you know, it helps me get results.
Funny story. My son was in university. He's 22 now, but his first year there, he wanted a job in you know, the downtime in summer. And their generation is all just about going online. Everything's online. And I said, well, physically print out resumes, physically go door to door. He wanted to get a job with landscaping. I said, physically go to landscapers and put your resume in. No, it'll never work. Put it off for like a month, couldn't get a job. I said, just trust the old man. First place he went to, they actually got him in. He interviewed with the boss right away and got a job. And the guy said, nobody ever comes in anymore. So yeah, so you're showing all this, you know, adventure coming in. So that's part of it too, is our world is so changed that we're doing everything online. To actually somebody shows up, it's actually holy crap. Okay. So yeah, we'll talk.
Well, it goes back to what you said. Like, if I have to do it that way, if it has to be online, it's not fitting so well with my personality. Like I don't do that. Like, if people are going to ignore me, I'm going to get an answer. And if they take away that, you know, that way of me doing it, that sucks. So I got to figure a way around that one. But I mean, down here, they're open, like it's like normal life down here. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons that this seems to fit better for me. And for me, like big cash flow needs, like I need to know that, you know, not needs, but I won't buy unless there's big cash flow in a project. So, I'm looking forward to seeing some opportunities down here. It's funny how our conversations went here. Who knew you were looking down here as well?
I didn't expect it to go that way either. But so
well, you didn't know. We've never talked.
All of a sudden, these questions about real, like, show me some real numbers. Let me bring it up. Put me on the spot.
Yeah, sorry. Everybody gets that. I do like to do back of the envelope conceptual, but it doesn't always work out as easy as, you know, especially with these more complex deals. But we do a lot of BRRRRs on this show. But I love getting outside of that. And the land development thing, I think, is so critical. I think that there's the low hanging fruit, which is the BRRRR and the regular rental and the flip, but those don't earn people nearly the profit they used to. And now it's where we need to get more sophisticated. We need to start thinking of what are other people not really willing to do, or what don't they want to do? And that's the opportunity. To me, that's been so critical, looking at what other people not doing. And then, because if you're just doing what everyone else is doing, then you're competing with them. You don't want to be competing.
So, and that's kind of what happened with the infills here in Calgary. I want to say, 10, 15 years ago, all of a sudden, they're really good for a while. And then all of a sudden everybody started doing them. And then prices go up. And now
they suck the profit out of it.
They suck the profit, right? Yeah. So you got to find new things too.
I used to be able to buy the house I like to do in my sort of BRRRRs. I used to be able to buy them for around 200 grand, put in another 200 and have it worth, 530, 550. Worked really well. It's kind of like almost like printing money. And then that same junk that I used to buy for 200 is now 450, 500.
Yeah.
That's not, it's not like I'm getting that more on the back end. So things change and you got to adapt. And it's been tough in Ontario, right? A lot of Ontarians don't want to go outside the province. They even outside of their cities. And I think it's caused a little bit of a slow for a lot of people to accept lower returns and lower margins and lower cash flow, which I think is risky. So that to me is, I love these out of the box. Let's think, how do we expand? How do we do things differently? How do we go to new markets? I think those are great conversations. So I appreciate that. Now, before we let you go, could you give me any final words of wisdom just to wrap this conversation up?
One of my favorite sayings is don't let perfection be the enemy of the very good. And I think that's one of our problems in Canada now is we're trying objectively speaking, Canada's not perfect, but it's as close as you're going to get on this planet, I think. And so let's not try to screw it up by trying to be perfect. Mr. Trudeau, as I was talking directly to you, but anyway.
Love it. And I love that quote in general. I love that quote.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this social media and what we're hearing, all the negative feedback, is because people are trying for perfection. And do it like compare us to where we were 100 years or 200 years ago. We're all through our history as humanity. Like shit's good, man. Like it's all this negative. Like I try to feed, my kids are all early 20s and they've grown up with the social media negativity. I think, guys, like, it has never been a better time to be alive on this planet.
Yeah. Well, we've never had it easier. That's the thing we don't realize. Are you familiar with Stefan Arnio?
Yep.
Yeah. His Hard Times Create Strong Men book.
Yeah.
So there's the Hard Times Create Strong Men. Strong men create good times. Good times creates weak men. Weak men create hard times. I believe we're in the weak men creating hard times thing. We've never had it easier, never had it better, and we're so confused about it. So this is why I want people to get back out, learn how to create their own food, how to grow their own food, find their own water, survive, build their own investment portfolio, secure their own livelihood. I think that those skills are extremely valuable right now, and people don't quite realize it. So
in my other world, I'm also a farm diversification specialist, where I help farmers of all sizes get new sources of revenue. So I've actually got one client that we actually started fish farming. I got a huge fish farm facility in Alberta. I got other guys doing hops. We're starting to look at mushrooms on another client. So
nice.
So that's kind of feeding my why and my happy space at this point too. So
love it.
Speaks to what you're talking about too.
I want extra land. Like I'd love to look even down here. I want to have greenhouses. Like I want to actually grow my own food and just have an entirely sort of self-sustaining kind of ecosystem that I can live on. So to never be dependent, right? I think as an investor in any circumstance, even dependent on our job, if we're dependent on our job, we lose all options, right? If you're dependent on your investment portfolio, then you might not be able to make the moves that you want to make moves. So if you can diversify and if you can remove dependencies, I think that your why can be better serviced and you'll have more time to even think about and satisfy it. So some abstract thoughts for today.
I think I think that COVID's really put out there that how dependent we were on China. And how dangerous that is too. Yeah. So let's we gotta be sovereign, right? As a country, as individuals. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Darcy, where do we send people if they want to learn more about you, follow you, get in touch with you? Okay. The website is hrrealestatementors.com. Short for Hutton Radway, realestatementors.com. And my email is Darcy, DARCY, at Hutton, HUTTON, Radway, RADWAY.com. Darcy at HuttonRadway.com.
.com or .ca?
.com.
.com. Okay. Yeah, I will throw those in the show notes. And I really appreciate you taking the time. It was interesting getting to hear your wisdom. You know what? I don't often talk to people that have been in this business for 20 plus years. So I guess you're on 20 years now. So that's
20 years.
That's great. We've got a lot of new successes, but I like to hear the ones that have weathered the storms and found their way through. So that's great.
Yeah. Very good. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Darcy. Well, let's stay in touch, and I'll look forward to seeing when those books come out. I'd love to grab a couple copies.
Excellent. Sounds very good. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. I'll see you on the next one.